The story of Joseph of Egypt. Joseph of Egypt, one of Jacob's 12 sons, was born into a complex family marked by rivalry and jealousy. As the son of Rachel, Jacob's beloved wife, Joseph quickly stood out as the favorite, sparking significant resentment among his older brothers. As a symbol of his special affection, Jacob gave Joseph a coat of many colors, a gift that not only demonstrated his father's love but also set him apart from his brothers, a rare honor in that time. This clear favoritism stirred deep envy in his brothers, who felt ignored and undervalued. This tension between Joseph of Egypt and his brothers grew daily, especially as he began having prophetic dreams that hinted at his future importance. In one dream, Joseph saw sheaves of wheat bowing to his own, a vision that implied future leadership over his brothers. In another dream, he saw the sun, moon, and 11 stars bowing to him. These dreams, interpreted as signs of his future greatness, angered his brothers further, who began to view him as a threat, someone they needed to remove at all costs. The betrayal and the pit. One day, while his brothers were herding the flock far from home, Jacob sent Joseph of Egypt to check on them. When they saw him approaching, the brothers conspired against him, considering ways to eliminate him. Initially, they planned to kill him and cover up the crime, but Reuben, the eldest, intervened, suggesting they throw him into a dry pit instead, with the secret intention of rescuing him later. However, Reuben's plan didn't unfold as expected. When Joseph arrived, the brothers stripped him of his colorful coat, the symbol of Jacob's love, and threw him into the pit without mercy, ignoring his pleas for help. They then sat down to eat, indifferent to Joseph's suffering, blinded by their jealousy. As they debated his fate, a caravan of Ishmaelite traders passed by. Judah then had an idea: to sell Joseph as a slave, sparing his life while profiting from his misfortune. The brothers agreed and sold Joseph for 20 pieces of silver. Thus, Joseph of Egypt was taken to Egypt and sold to Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh and captain of the guard. To deceive Jacob, they stained Joseph's coat with animal blood, leading their father to believe that his beloved son had been devoured by a wild animal. Jacob was inconsolable, his grief remaining with him for many years. Joseph in Potiphar's house. In Egypt, Joseph's life took an unexpected turn. He proved to be intelligent, diligent, and capable in managing affairs, earning Potiphar's trust and eventually being put in charge of his entire household. Potiphar recognized that Joseph's presence brought blessings, as everything he touched seemed to prosper. The Bible describes that God was with Joseph of Egypt, a fact that was evident to those around him. However, this period of prosperity would not last forever. Potiphar's wife, drawn by Joseph's appearance, attempted to seduce him on multiple occasions. But Joseph remained faithful to God and loyal to Potiphar, resisting her advances. When she was rejected yet again, Potiphar's wife, fueled by anger, falsely accused him of attempting to harm her. This accusation led to Joseph being imprisoned, another injustice that seemed to extinguish all his hopes. The prison and the interpretation of dreams. Even in prison, Joseph of Egypt did not lose his faith. He continued to stand out for his integrity and competence, gaining the trust of the warden, who placed him in charge of other prisoners. It was in prison that Joseph used his gift of interpreting dreams to help two of Pharaoh's imprisoned officials, the cupbearer and the baker. By accurately interpreting their dreams, Joseph gained further recognition, and the cupbearer, once freed, promised to speak of him to Pharaoh. Unfortunately, the cupbearer forgot about Joseph for 2 long years, but Joseph remained patient, trusting in God's plan. Joseph, the governor of Egypt. After 2 years, Pharaoh had a troubling dream that no one could interpret. In his dream, 7 fat cows were devoured by 7 thin cows, and 7 healthy ears of grain were consumed by 7 shriveled ears. It was then that the cupbearer remembered Joseph of Egypt and mentioned his ability to Pharaoh. Joseph was summoned, and before interpreting the dream, he prayed for wisdom. After hearing Pharaoh's dream, Joseph explained that it foretold 7 years of abundance followed by 7 years of famine. Impressed by his accuracy, Pharaoh appointed Joseph as the governor of Egypt, tasking him with storing grain during the plentiful years to prepare for the coming famine. Over time, Joseph became the most powerful man in Egypt, second only to Pharaoh. His leadership and wisdom not only saved Egypt but also many other nations that sought food during the famine. News of the abundance in Egypt eventually reached Canaan, where Jacob and his sons were suffering. Jacob then sent his sons to Egypt to buy grain, unaware that the man they would meet was Joseph of Egypt. The reunion and reconciliation with his brothers. When Joseph's brothers arrived, they did not recognize him, as he was dressed as an Egyptian noble and spoke the local language. But Joseph recognized them and decided to test them to see if they had changed. He accused them of being spies and demanded they bring their youngest brother, Benjamin, as proof of their honesty. When they returned with Benjamin, Joseph was deeply moved upon seeing his younger brother. He treated them well but maintained his disguise, planting a silver cup in Benjamin's sack as a test. When confronted, his brothers showed genuine concern, especially for their father, Jacob, who had already suffered greatly over Joseph. Their genuine remorse touched Joseph deeply, and he could no longer hold back his emotions. He revealed his identity, saying, "I am Joseph, the one you sold as a slave." His brothers were terrified, but Joseph reassured them, explaining that everything that had happened was part of God's plan to save them during the famine. With tears, he embraced his brothers, and they were finally reconciled, bringing forgiveness and healing to the family. Joseph, the provider for his family. After the reunion, Joseph sent his brothers back to Canaan to bring Jacob and the whole family to Egypt, inviting them to live in safety. When Jacob learned that Joseph was alive, he was in shock, but his sorrow quickly turned to joy. Joseph provided the best for his family, settling them in the land of Goshen, where they could thrive during the years of famine. Joseph of Egypt became a powerful and respected figure, remaining faithful to God throughout his life. Even after Jacob's death, when his brothers feared he might seek revenge, Joseph reassured them with words of peace, affirming his forgiveness and trust in God's plan. The story of Joseph of Egypt, rich with themes of perseverance, resilience, and faith, has become one of the most inspiring accounts in Scripture. It shows how, through hardship and injustice, divine providence can transform suffering into blessings and demonstrates that, with faith, one can overcome adversity and find redemption.